This is Midnight Sun. In Christian countries, Christmas is coming. But we are not going to tell you to come into our Midnight Sun shop and buy our books. Although, oops, I've just done that, so excuse me. That's not what it was about. Christmas is coming and we are going to ask you to do something else. We are going to ask you to reflect on the founding story of our Western civilization. The story of the birth of one Jesus the Nazarene, someone who was born in a manger, and now half the world celebrates that supposed birth. Moreover, the global chronological system is also marked by the theoretical day of birth of this person who was born in a manger. We celebrate the birth of someone who had no power as a religious authority in Judaism, which was his religion and his culture, and yet he brought those Jewish beliefs to half the world. We are talking about someone who had no political power either, at a time when the Roman Empire ruled his land with an iron fist. However, a few centuries later, in 312 of the Common Era, Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity. We are talking about someone who launched a message of love, of fellowship, of non-violence, a message that undoubtedly, at that time, a much wilder time than ours, had no chance of social acceptance. If in our times, in our own times, many people would say, but where is this man going, saying these hippie things? Imagine what a message of love, fraternity, and non-violence would sound like in the Judea and Galilee of 2,000 years ago. And yet no one denies the huge historical influence of that message, as many analysts see its traces in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights itself. So much for the impact of someone who was born 2,000 years ago in a manger. And the fact is that from our smallness, we can change the world. However small we are, however little power we wield, we can change the world. You sow the seeds, and nature itself, the universe, takes care of the rest. It takes care of making the trees grow, and then, after a few centuries, when nobody remembers you, when nobody knows that it was you who planted those seeds, a large forest will have grown from the trees. All that from the small seeds that you planted. We begin here this space, this new episode of Midnight Sun, which we are going to call How Can I Change the World from My Smallness? And we are going to accompany it First of all, with a quote from Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes, a quote that says, "The chief proof of humans' real greatness lies in their perception of their own smallness." If you think this program does not apply to you, you might be wrong. Let's say it again. Things that concern us all, things that we learn that can be valuable for the common good, for all people, always end up being valuable for the individual. Please, do not doubt that these programs also apply to you.
Midnight Sun, directed by Grian Cutanda.
Welcome to Midnight Sun. Many people see what is happening in the world, especially in recent times. They see the atrocities that are taking place. They see the brutal destruction of the environment in which we live. They see the destruction of lives, human and non-human lives, in the most barbaric ways, in the most absurd and merciless ways, and they wonder what they could do. And they tell themselves that they would like to change the world. Many people therefore think, they say, "I would like to change things." Some people say this to excuse themselves to their own conscience, because they are not really willing to make the sacrifices involved in changing anything in this world. But there are others who say it in all sincerity, who would like to change the world and yet feel powerless, feel small. What can I do from my smallness? They think. This program is aimed at those people who would sincerely like to change the world and, in their smallness, think they cannot. When in fact, you can. And to show you that you can do a lot, let's start with a story. An ancient tale from southern China, which can illustrate the situation. Once upon a time, an elephant was walking with weary steps down a road in a great jungle in southeastern China when, suddenly, he saw a tiny hummingbird in the middle of the road. The bright little bird was absolutely motionless, belly up, with her legs stretched skyward. "Is she dead?" thought the elephant as he approached the hummingbird. He gave her a light tap with his trunk in case she still had some life left. "Hey, do not push me!" The hummingbird opened her eyelids. "I did not know if you were dead," the elephant said, relieved to see that the bird was fine. But what are you doing here in the middle of the road? Someone could step on you. Precisely. I am here so everybody can see me, the hummingbird replied. I have heard that the sky is going to fall on our heads today, and if that happens, I am here, ready to do my part and help to hold it up. The elephant remained motionless for a moment, as if he hadn't heard what the little bird had said. Then, abruptly, he burst into laughter, a trumpeting guffaw that only an elephant could blow through the strident amplifier of his trunk, a noise that filled the jungle. Have you gone crazy, little bird? The elephant asked when he managed to control his hilarity. Do you really think that you will be able to hold up the sky with those slender legs? The hummingbird did not like that at all. Looking at the elephant angrily, she raised her head and said, I know perfectly well that I will not be able to hold up the sky by myself. That is precisely why I have placed myself in the middle of the road, in the sight of everyone, because then all creatures can see me and imitate me to do everything in their power to hold up the sky. This is what is in my power to do. This is one story in the Earth Stories collection, a global bank of myths, legends, and tales offered as educational tools to transmit a systemic, ecocentric, organicist worldview, the worldview we collectively need to develop to get out of this crisis, this climate and extinction emergency in which we find ourselves. Well, the story of the elephant and the hummingbird illustrates what I wanted to convey to you now. We were saying that, there are people who honestly say, I would like to change things in the world, but what can I do for my smallness? Well, I went through it myself. I went through that situation. So I can tell you a part of my personal story about this. Perhaps for some people, I might skirt some social conventions by telling these things. But if you think about it, it has not been by following social conventions that we human beings have improved the world. So, I'm going to tell you this little story. The hummingbird, after all, doesn't follow social conventions either. Well, I was saying that I went through that. I went through that situation of saying I would like to change things, and yet what could I do from my smallness? This happened to me in 1979. When I was 22 years old. Specifically, on the 8th of December 1979, 44 years ago. That is a long time. I was in a sort of lake, in a reservoir where I went on a regular basis. And, at that time, I had just finished my studies at the university. I had just obtained my degree as a psychologist, and I remember that at that period I was shocked by the images I saw on television. Images that had a great impact on me. Images of people dying of hunger in Africa. Especially, I remember the famines in Ethiopia. That day, other images also came to my mind. which I had not seen on television, but which I had seen directly. It was the images of forest fires in the inland area of the province of Valencia in Spain. Those fires wounded my soul as I saw the trees lighting up like matches. Perhaps you don't know that pine trees have a substance which, when it reaches a certain temperature, suddenly bursts into flames. And that is why the pine trees suddenly ignite completely. Watching trees die was devastating for me. It was terrible. And that 8th December 1979, I decided that I wanted to do something. That day, I was thinking to myself, something like that. Well, I finished my psychology studies. What am I going to do with my life? I am 22. I have my whole life ahead of me. What am I going to do with my life? I wanted to give my life a direction from the beginning, so that I wouldn't reach the age of 70 or 80 and suddenly come to the conclusion that I had wasted my life. I wanted to give it a direction from the beginning, and at that time I thought that the best thing I could do to avoid having regrets when I was old was to try to leave a more habitable world behind me. That is where the idea of what can I do from my smallness came up. That day I ended up in tears. I was alone, there, in the lake, in that lake. At that time, I did not believe in anything that was not scientifically proven. I didn't believe in anything spiritual. I had the typical modernist, agnostic mentality. Let's say I didn't even think about it. However, at that moment, I said to myself, I don't know if there is something out there. If there is something out there, I want you to know that I want to do something, that I want to do my part. Because from my smallness, I don't think I can do anything. And at that moment, I felt deep inside me that something had taken me at my word. It would be years later when I would realize that indeed, that was where it all began. When I saw that the whole process I had been following had started on that 8th December. That was the beginning of the process that has brought me to this point now, where you are listening to my voice on the internet or on the radio. Of what happened on that 8th December and of part of the process that followed in the 17 subsequent years, I was to write a book, my second book, entitled Beyond the Rainbow. There I told, in fiction, about a character called Amadan. Amadan means idiot in Celtic, the idiot savant, the young idiot who doesn't yet know what it's all about and yet wants to change the world. I told that in Beyond the Rainbow. 44 years later, looking back, that smallness has been transformed into 18 published books, one of them an international bestseller, translated into 14 languages. And in addition to these books, I made a social science research that has given rise to a global project, the Earth Stories Collection, which is having an international impact. The seeds planted in these 44 years have given rise to, I would say, maybe more than 1,000 lectures, workshops, courses, and other educational activities, all aimed at trying to leave a better world behind me. The seeds led to my involvement as an activist in the Indignados movement in Spain, in the People's Climate March in Scotland, and globally in Extinction Rebellion, in Shale Must Fall, and recently in the beginnings of the Debt for Climate platform. I also planted the seeds doing radio in the 1990s, always trying to change the world. And also with small actions. I was in a brigade of forest fire volunteers, and after the fires, with a group of friends, we planted more than 20,000 trees in areas that had been destroyed by fire. I can know what has become of many of these seeds in my life, but if only 5 or 6 of them had become trees, in 500 or 1,000 years or 2,000 years, who knows, those trees will be forests. And that's what encourages me to keep going, and that's what I encourage you to do. No one is asking you to do anything heroic. Just put your talents at the service of the earth, at the service of humanity, at the service of the community of life on earth. Who knows if that little bit that you contribute might end up being the key to bringing about change or preventing the disappearance of life on earth. You can never know. You may have heard of that parable, the parable of the snowflake, the one about how the snowflakes hardly weigh anything, and yet, if enough of them gather on the branch of a tree, eventually the branch breaks. And people, and in these tales, people wonder, how do you know which snowflake will break the branch? Even if it has almost no weight, there is always a flake that will be the one to break the branch. Perhaps it is your tiny contribution that will prevent the collapse of our civilization and allow us to overcome the climate and extinction emergency we face. How do we know? Maybe it is your tiny contribution. This is what we propose to you from Midnight Sun. This is what we propose to you from Rainbow Warriors 3.5. This social movement that we are beginning to build and in which we intend to each person puts his or her talents at the service of the earth and the community of life on earth. Join the tribe of all colors. Welcome, everyone, whatever your ideas. We don't care about your ideas, but simply about your sincere desire to change things. Welcome, because if you follow us in this program, you will end up seeing the world in a different way. Midnight Sun, if you are listening to us, you are already part of the tribe.
Midnight Sun is a radio program that seeks to foster the process of social transformation needed to address the social, climate, and extinction emergency we are now entering. Our goal, that you put your talents at the service of the earth and the terrestrial community of life. Join the tribe at the Midnight Sun, the social media hub of the Rainbow Warriors 3.5 global campaign.
As hard as the times ahead may be, At Midnight Sun, we will keep believing that we can still build an alternative future. Our secret, radical hope. However unreal it may seem. Join the tribe of Midnight Sun. We were saying that we invite you to put your talents at the service of the earth and the terrestrial community of life. But what is this about talent? Etymology tells us that talent comes from Greek talenton, pronounced talendon, which is the name given to each weighing pan on the scales. Over time, this term was applied to coins, which were also weighed. This was the name given to a coin of account used by both the Greeks and the Romans. Talent, therefore, was related to wealth. What can we draw from this? Let's tell another story. In this case, it is an Indian Buddhist story entitled Supraya's Bowl. Times of hardship bring out the best and the worst from the human soul, as illustrated by this particular story that took place long ago, at a time when Buddha was traveling through the lands of India. A famine had fallen on the peoples of the region. The rains did not arrive, the fields dried under the sun, and the crops were lost. Those who dwelled in towns and cities struggled to survive. As so often happens in such circumstances, there were people who thrived, who grew rich at the expense of the misery of others. Every day a disciple would come to the Sangha, describing what he had witnessed and what he had been told along the way. Some merchants are taking the grain for their silos to sell it in other places where they still have money to pay for it. And the little that they do sell here, they sell for the price of gold, said a disciple who had just arrived from Varanasi. I have been told that there are people who are selling themselves as slaves in order to be fed by their masters, said another, an expression of deep sadness in his eyes. Yesterday in the city, the merchants' guards stabbed a man who tried to take a bag of rice from their barns, another said. The greatest sadness is that of the children of the suburbs, said Buddha, who are starving in the streets, while the rich accumulate grain and milk in their stores. Summon everyone, said the Buddha, rising to his feet. We must do something to alleviate the hunger of the poorest. The disciples of Lord Buddha did what he asked and gathered hundreds of people in the great square of the city. The simplest and humblest people, many of them famished and in dire need, flocked to the place. But the many merchants and rich people from the city also came, because everyone respected the Buddha and wanted to hear what he had to say. Citizens of these rich lands, said Buddha from a raised arcade that amplified his voice. Misfortune has fallen on the region, but as soon as the rains come, these lands will again fill you with blessings and provide enough food for all. However, until that time, he continued, people have to survive. There is sure to be enough food in the stores of the richest to feed everyone in the city. If the rich share what they have in these moments of scarcity, you can all survive until the rains come and the crops are renewed. The poorest and the hungriest among Buddha's audience looked at each other with a glimmer of hope in their eyes, but the rich frowned, lowered their hats, and stirred uncomfortably. Some of them left the square, swearing that they would never again respond to the call of the Buddha. "I do not have enough for my family and my servants," a rich man said, lying. "He who is poor is so because he is a lazy man," said another contemptuously. "Everyone is responsible for their own destiny. If someone does not have anything to eat, it is because they did not work hard enough and did not create reserves like we did." "There are too many poor people," another added. "We cannot take care of everyone. Let them seek help elsewhere." There was silence in the square. The Buddha lowered his eyes. His heart had shrunk at the unconsciousness of those men. Discouraged that not one among the rich had offered to relieve the hardships of the needy, the Buddha asked for the last time, in no more than a whisper, "Is there no one here willing to donate some food, so that the children from the poorest neighborhoods do not die of hunger?" The silence hurt his ears. Then, suddenly, a small voice spoke out in the middle of the crowd. "I am willing, Lord Buddha." A girl, no more than 7 years of age, peeked out through the clothes of the richest. She was the daughter of a merchant who had tried in vain to stop her from speaking. "My name is Supriya," said the girl, "and I have a bowl in which I can collect food for those who are hungry." Buddha's face lit up with joy. "Oh, little one, your gesture has restored my hope in the human heart. But how are you going to do this all by yourself?" "Oh no, Lord Buddha, I am not alone," said the girl. "I am sure my father, mother, and my brothers and sisters will help me. I will go from house to house with my bowl asking for food for the poor, and I am certain not one will close the door to me." The discomfort amongst the richest became apparent. The little girl, with her generosity and commitment, had embarrassed them. Many of them felt ashamed. "I think I have a couple of sacks of rice in my warehouse," the girl's father said, raising his voice without daring to raise his eyes. "No, I remember that I once left a supply of dried vegetables in an old barn for situations like this," said a man of the highest caste. "I'm sorry that I was so mean," another said, opening up. "I should not have forgotten that my father was hungry once too. Supriya, count on me to help you." That afternoon, Supriya began her journey through the richest neighborhoods, going from house to house, asking for her bowl to be filled with food. After word of what happened in the square had spread, nobody could refuse to give her rice, milk, fruit, and vegetables. The next day, other children from wealthy neighborhoods joined Supriya with their own bowls. Together with the disciples of Buddha and the Buddha himself, they formed a small army of compassion. For many weeks, Supriya collected food from the rich quarters and took it to the hungriest of the suburbs, walking from one side of the city to the other. From time to time, exhausted by the effort of so many days, the girl would fall asleep under the big banyan tree that stood next to the temple. And when she woke up, she would always find that people had filled her bowl and left other provisions in sacks and jars to distribute among the poor. Sometimes a tender heart is able to soften thousands or millions of hard hearts. The Buddha commented to his disciples, and that tender heart can be hidden anywhere. Surprises Bowl, another story that you can find in the Earth Stories collection, which you can even download for free from there. This story leads us to reflect on wealth. The wealth of the rich was their money, but they had no wealth of soul. The wealth and power were in the little girl, who had no money of her own, but who had wealth of soul. She had a big soul, she had generosity, she had the capacity for sacrifice, for empathy. What is your wealth? What is your gift, your talent, your talent? What life gave you abundantly for you to share with the world? Don't mind your smallness. Don't mind it at all. As said by Sarah Ruhl, an American playwright, poet, professor, and essayist, smallness is subversive because smallness can creep into smaller places and wreak transformation at the most vulnerable cellular level. In a time when largeness is threatening to topple us, I wish to remember and praise the beauty of smallness in order to banish the Goliath of loneliness. As we said before, the smallness of the seeds that can get into the cracks of the earth, that subversive smallness, as this American playwright says. You have to give time to the seeds. You plant them and then you have to give them time, because in time those tiny seeds will transform the landscape and the world. Even you, in your individuality, are also a seed. In your smallness, you can transform the world, even if you don't know it, even if you can't imagine it. You can be that seed that will give rise to a new civilization that is more just, more humane, twinned with the rest of the species on the planet. Join the tribe of all colors of Midnight Sun.
According to leading social science research, we need 3.5% of the world's population to put their talents into action if we are to mitigate the effects of the climate and extinction emergency we are facing. And that is the aim of this radio space. Midnight Sun is the communication hub of the Rainbow Warriors 3.5 global campaign.
The tribe of all colors of Midnight Sun is none other than the Rainbow Warriors 3.5 tribe. What we want it to be is a social movement, a global movement of people of all races, all creeds, beliefs, of all social backgrounds, a global tribe made up of small tribes, small autonomous tribes. This is our idea, small tribes that can be made up of from 2 people to hundreds, tribes of friends or family, even tribes of known people with the same hobbies or talents, or perhaps with complementary talents and hobbies, where some do some things and others do others, and together they do magnificent work for the earth and the terrestrial community of life. Tribes of people who may even be strangers to each other. You can recruit people. Maybe you have a good idea and you want to recruit a group of people you don't know. But you make a call through social networks and you find people willing to collaborate. And if the group doesn't work, because sometimes people, people are people, and we have our shortcomings and we have our flaws. If the group doesn't work, well, you can always break up the group and set up another one. By this I mean, don't see this as a way of tying yourself to people who, in time, you might not get along with. Let's face it, we are human, but groups can be broken up and new groups can be formed. The good thing about being able to make new groups is that, unlike other social movements, where maybe, I don't know, you create one group in each city, for example, the Eindhoven group or the Barcelona group or the Phoenix group, the difference here is that there can be tens or hundreds of groups in each city. In each city there will be many tribes. This is our idea. In this way, we also avoid petty power struggles. The important thing is that all the tribes are coordinated in a network, without bosses, all autonomous and coordinated in a network. That is what is important. They can come together in this network. The different tribes can come together for specific campaigns, or they can carry out a specific project. Suddenly, for example, 2 or 3 tribes can come together to do a specific project. Or all the Rainbow Warriors 3.5 tribes can come together if we have something important or powerful to work on. For example, for COP29 in Baku next year, we could coordinate all the tribes to do an online pressure campaign. The important thing is simply to make tribes of people willing to work together, to put their talents at the service of the earth. Another question is what possible tribes could be made. Well, perhaps we can tell you over the course of the programs about different possible tribes. For example, if your talents, if you are good at, if one of your talents is working with plants, or, well, if you have a special taste for being in nature, for going through forests, maybe you can make a tribe to restore forest, to reforest, to take care of the undergrowth, to keep the forests healthy and strong. Or you can make a tribe that prepares tree seedlings. Let's say plant the seeds and take care of them until they have grown into a small tree, which you can then reforest. You can plant it in forest or in areas where there are no forests and you want to create a forest. There, maybe you should start to creating undergrowth before planting trees. But well, there are many ways, and there are many people who know a lot and who can explain to you how to do these things. You can talk to experts. You can learn a lot within that tribe. Another possibility would be somewhere I read that during the hippie era in San Francisco, people would suddenly take a wasteland, a lot that the city council had abandoned, and turn it into a garden. I think they called the first one of these proposals the People's Park. Then it became a trend, and in San Francisco, any abandoned lot that people found could be a candidate to be turned into a garden. Well, that is another thing you can do. If you like plants, you can create a tribe to make urban gardens, wherever you can create gardens. And if you have a talent for working with computers or handling or manage different software, then you can make a tribe to create videos, produce and edit videos that talk about things that will help us get out of this climate and extinction emergency. If you like graphic design, you can make memes, you can make infographics, presentations, you can take quotes from interesting people with interesting ideas and put an image on them and launch them on social networks. If you like sport, action, exercise, even extreme sports, why not consider talking to your local council or municipality about setting up a forest fire brigade, a volunteer brigade? You could look for professional firefighters to train you, to give you training, and you could help out when forest fires break out in your region. There are many ways. There are infinite ways to work for the earth and for the terrestrial community of life. From here, in each program, we will be suggesting new ideas. But how can we carry out such a project, such kind of projects? Well, you can set up small study teams to look at how the project can be realized. You can contact experts, you can contact authorities, you can create networks inside and outside Rainbow Warriors 3.5. Networks are important. Moreover, it is crucial to be connected. Within Rainbow Warriors 3.5, you can look for other groups as possible support or propose the creation of a larger group where, 5, 6, 10 tribes join together to do a more complex or more elaborated job. And outside Rainbow Warriors, you can create networks with city councils, municipalities with fire brigades, for example. If you are thinking about a volunteer forest fire brigade, you can create networks with NGOs and social movements as well, with Greenpeace, with Extinction Rebellion, with Fridays for Future, with, Amnesty International. There are many people who would be willing to lend you a hand, to guide you, to advise you. You can even join one of these organizations. As Rainbow Warriors does not ask for exclusive dedication. On the contrary, our approach is inclusive. And what we ask is that people join the fight against the climate and extinction crisis wherever they are. Ultimately, to be part of Rainbow Warriors is to be part of a tribe of ordinary people. from housekeepers to students to truck drivers, from clerks to university professors. Everyone fits in here. People with the radical hope that we can avoid disaster, that we are going to do it. People who are altruistic, who think more of the common good than of their own personal and particular good. People who want to be part of a tribe of all races, of all beliefs, of all cultures, of that collective of people that history will remember as the Rainbow Warriors who managed to avoid disaster. That is the idea we are bringing to you. That is the idea we are proposing to you. You can sign up for Rainbow Warriors 3.5 or Midnight Sun. Either way is fine. And you will be part of the same tribe. For Midnight Sun you can do it on Patreon, but there is also the Rainbow Warriors 3.5 website. You can sign up there as well. We leave the links in the credits of the program. And you can also write to info@midnightsun.com.es, info@midnightsun.com.es. Join the tribe of all colors of Rainbow Warriors 3.5. Do you know the Earth Charter? The Earth Charter is an international declaration of ethical principles for the respect and care of life, ecological integrity, social and economic justice, democracy, non-violence and peace. But it is also a worldwide movement which seeks to inspire in all people a new sense of global interdependence and shared responsibility for the well-being of the whole human family, the community of life and future generations, thus becoming a vision of hope and a call to action. Learn more about the Earth Charter at earthcharter.org. Earth Charter, turning conscience into action. Today's program has been entitled "How Can I Change the World from My Smallness?" And, well, we have told you a bunch of things. As we are almost at Christmas, we have spoken to you about Jesus as a paradigm of how, from smallness, the world can be changed, from the smallness of a baby born in a manger, and that nothing anticipated what he could achieve to transforming the world. We have told a story from ancient China, the elephant and the hummingbird, and we have seen that the hummingbird, however small, also did her part to help avert a disaster in the world. I've also told my own story, how I got into this madness of trying to change the world at a very young age, when I was 22. That is where it all started for me, and we suggested that it is all about planting seeds. Seeds are small, yet over the centuries they grow into forests. We simply have to plant seeds. The rest is done by the universe. We have also talked about the parable of the snowflake. You know, the one that asks which snowflake, when it falls, however lightly, is the one that causes the branch of the tree to break. And that gave us the option of asking you how to know if your tiny contribution will not be the one that prevents the collapse of civilization and allows us to overcome the climate and extinction emergency we are facing. And we have invited you to become part of the tribe, to join the tribe of Rainbow Warriors 3.5, putting your talents at the service of the earth and the community of earth life. Your talents. Talent, an ancient currency from classical times. But, well, what we are saying here is that you put your wealth. What is your wealth? What are your talents? That is what you can put at the service of the earth, of humanity and life on earth. We have also told a story from Indian Buddhism, Supraya's bowl, a girl who, with a bowl, manages to relieve the drama of a famine in India. And what was her wealth? Her wealth was her generosity, her capacity for sacrifice. Her wealth was simply empathy. And we have been talking about how to start building Rainbow Warriors 3.5, this social movement that we want to be different. A movement for all kinds of people, housekeepers, cleaners, teachers, accountants, engineers. Everyone can be part of Rainbow Warriors 3.5. And we are going to leave now because we are running out of time and we have to finish.
Midnight Sun is the communication hub of the Rainbow Warriors 3.5 global campaign, which aims to get 3.5% of the population to put their talents at the service of the Earth and her community of life, in order to mitigate the climate and extinction emergency, and thus prevent the collapse of our civilization. But for that, we need help. Join the Midnight Sun tribe of all colors and become a patron for just $1 a month. Find us on Patreon as Midnight Sun.
And we are going to say goodbye today with a different kind of music, with an eminently Christmas tune. A tune that reminds me of Scotland, a place that I carry in my heart, deeply embedded in my heart. Scotland and its people, the Scottish people, wonderful people. Thank you for listening. We would like to thank Kim Robertson, who has kindly allowed us to use her version of Greensleeves as the theme tune for this program. Thanks to John Mario Diaz and Radio Chacaruna, the first radio station to broadcast this program from Colombia. Thanks to Blake Kendall for lending his voice. Thanks to Marta Ventura also for providing her voice and for running the Midnight Sun engine room. And well, simply to those of you who are Christians, I would like to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And to those of you who are not Christians, just because you inhabit planet Earth, I would like to wish you happiness on the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere and the and on the summer solstice in the southern hemisphere. In the end, Mother Earth conveys many things to us by the mere message of her cycles, and nothing else. May the sun shine for you in the midnight of the year.
To avoid the social collapse we are heading towards because of the climate and extinction emergency, we are going to need 3.5% of the population to take action. That means we need help. Lots of help. If you have an independent radio station and want to share Midnight Sun's radio programs on it, find out more at midnightsun.com.es/broadcasting. Midnight Sun, the social media hub of the Rainbow Warriors 3.5 global campaign.
Midnight Sun, el sol de medianoche.